Hi everyone, my name is Natasha and I'd like to share with you my feedback about TB Joshua's movie that have been released recently by BBC. And I won't pass judgment here, you will decide by yourself who is right, who is not. Just I want to drag your attention on some red flags that I didn't notice when I was in that country. I want to share with you my story, maybe to warn you not to make the same mistakes that I did. And many people they can tell, oh, it's Natasha, and she had obviously negative experience in Africa, and now she blame everyone. I went through many crazy things in that country. I was robbed many times. I was cheated. They lied to me. I was tied up at night, but my motive is very different. Just I want to warn you not to put yourself in danger and to show you the mission from another side, from inside. 2007, Pastor Jose Mulindi from Uganda, Kajansi region, came to Russia, to Moscow's church Word of Life, and he brought with him 22 kids. It was a beautiful kids choir. So these kids were performing on the stage. This pastor was sharing his testimony, crying, he was preaching, he was praying, and people were so touched, and they collected some donations for this pastor. It was one part of the story, but there is another part, the darkest one. This pastor, after that show, came to the kids' shower and he beat all of them up. And he told them, I got not enough money. So it means that you were performing very bad. 2014, I decided to go to Uganda, to Kajansi, with my friend. Her name is Lisa and she was 18 years old at that time. And we got exactly to this pastor's church. We used to live in his house. I know his family, his beautiful wife, Dora. She was so kind and lovely woman. She cooked for us food and she cared for us and for kids. And I saw that kids from the choir, and we did a lot of stuff for the church, for the school. We took kids for sponsorship, we treated them, we brought them some presents, we fed them, and so on. I decided to go to Uganda because I heard about Joseph Kony. It's a terrorist who kidnapped thousands of kids. And I watched the movie Gun Preacher Machine, and I was so impressed that I wanted to go there by myself and to help these kids somehow. But I got to the school. The more I was there, the more I realized that something went wrong with this ministry. First of all, I saw fear in the eyes of the children, but I didn't pay serious attention on that because in my eyes it was a pastor with authority. I couldn't believe that a pastor like that could harm kids or do something bad with people. So I just closed my eyes on that. After, in embassy, ambassador of Uganda, he explained to us what this pastor did. The police of Uganda came to the house of this pastor and they found a huge suitcase full of passports of the kids. And they explained to us, this pastor came to the deepest villages and he pursued parents to sell their small houses, small pieces of lands, and to give all the money to him. And he promised to these people better future for their children. So I completely can understand all of you who didn't believe the investigation of BBC movie because I was in the same circumstances. I was there inside of the pastor's house of the church and I saw his sermons. I saw these beautiful happy kids. I saw his wife, and I saw all this impressive ministry. I saw how he carried his Bible every time with him. I felt something went wrong there, but I suppressed that feelings because I didn't want to believe that people like that, this kind and beautiful people who help kids, can be scam. I couldn't believe that pastor who has authority and who's supposed to be kind to kids can do some cruel things. They all play their roles, of course. They all draw a picture for me. And he constantly threatened the kids and he asked them every time, on which side are you? On this white lady who came and go, or on my side? I give you education, I treat you like a son, I give you food. And these kids, they was afraid so much and they was oppressed of this manipulation of the pastor, and they had to lie to us. Before missionaries arrived, kids were instructed how to behave, what they can say, what they haven't say. And all these people, they seem to be your best friends, and you can serve together and you can live in one house. And you impressed after 2 missionary trip weeks in Africa, you come back to your country and you can tell all your friends like it was so great experience. The kid there was so nice and so happy, and the pastor, he was so powerful and he was so kind to us. And for many people it's impossible to believe my words, and it's very hard to believe this investigation of BBC too. And I can feel you because I was in the same trap. What mistakes I've made? First of all, I was too naive and I didn't listen to those people who's been living there for many years and who's been serving kids. For example, Sam Childers, this gun preach machine. And he told me, Natasha, don't trust these people. I was listening to him, but I didn't accept his words seriously. Why? Because it was impossible for me to serve people and not to trust them, to be in this country with these people and not to believe them. And I often speak about codependency. It's my disease. It's easier for me to believe lies, but I feel inside that he lies to me, he cheated on me, but I better close my eyes on that, and I will be living in my imaginary worlds where everything is good, where all the people are kind, than to receive this cruel reality that will break my heart. And when this turning point occurred, when I had to open my eyes and face the reality, one kid from the school, he came in the morning in our house and he told us, I want to share with you my story. I want to share you the secrets that I've been keeping all this time. You know, this pastor, he beat the children and he kicked me in my stomach today in the morning. Now I feel pain. And guess my reaction? I didn't believe him. He's just a kid. Maybe it's his fantasy. Maybe today he had a nightmare. After that, one kid after another started to come to us, started to open their hearts before us, and they told us about pastor. Then he sold our mattresses that we bought, that he lied to us, that he kept all the stuff that we brought for children in his house. And yes, he beat these children every time. And you know, when I saw this movie and this testimony of this victim, and I saw many people, they didn't believe to her. And I can understand that too, because me personally, I didn't believe the kids. Better for me to believe this pastor, this authority, this great man, than some kids that came to me to complain about their pain. Once we took a girl from the street, her name was Sheriff, and she was an orphan, and we pursued pastor to take her on an educational program, and he did. After that, some kid, they came to us and told us that this pastor, he's beating Sheriff in his office. And we rushed to the school and we opened the door of this office and we saw the sheriff, and she was shaking with the fear. And I did the most unwise thing that you can do in Africa. I told the pastor in his face, like, what are you doing? Why do you beat these innocent kids? Why do you behave like that with other kids? Why you do this and this? Where is our stuff? And in Africa, you should be very wise. You should be very careful with these people. And that was my huge mistake too. And the pastor told me, calm down, my dear. Everything will be okay. Let's go to the house and we will discuss everything. We came to the house and we heard the door was locked. And they put some guy on the gate, not let us out. I saw that picture that all the administration of the school, his wife, were sitting in the living room, and they was accusing us in some crazy things We've never did. I was so shocked, and I was sitting there with my two friends. One, she was 18 years old, another one, she was 19 years old. And the pastor told me, "You're guilty because you kept kids, you did this and this." I couldn't believe my eyes, my ears, what he's talking about. I was serving with him. I went to his church. We had ministered together. And he told me at last, "My dear, you have to pay $2,000 to us, or you will never ever leave this country, or you will go to the jail." So, as I've told you already, I will suffer from codependency. So, my reaction of this crazy situation was I denied the reality. I was frozen. I couldn't believe my own eyes. I saw that they locked us. I heard that he wanted some ransom from our souls, but I didn't want to believe what he did with us. Sonia and Lisa, they rushed to the fence of the neighbor and they started to scream like, "Help us." They locked us in the house. "Please help, call the police." The pastor, he stood behind them and he started to speak with his neighbor on his local language. And he thought like, "Oh, this girl, they're crazy. Don't listen to them." We had to return to our room and we saw that everything was in a mess and all our clothes was upside down. They were searching for our passports. But before that, Sonia, she hid the passports under the sink, so they didn't find that. But they demanded passports every time. They threatened us and they didn't give us food. In the evening, they called us in the kitchen. They put the piece of meat on the table and told us, "You should eat that." And Sonia, she pushed me and told me like, "Natasha, this meat is poison." I struck the guard and I will try to throw this meat over the neighbor's fence. So I did, and we with Lisa, we distracted the guard. And Sonia, she put these pieces of meat in her pockets and she threw all this meat over the fence of the neighbor. I came to the pastor's wife and I started to negotiate with her to beg her, "Dora, please open the gate, open the house, let us out from here. Please have mercy on us. You heard all this accusation of us. You see what they are doing with us. Please help us. Let us out from this house." And this woman, this sweetest, beautiful woman that was so kind and nice to us, she turned to me and told me, "My dear, I will give you a good lesson. You will give me all this money. You want that or not?" And of course, we didn't have such money. And that people from Africa, they think whites, they're so rich. And their families, they're so rich. And they can't accept that reality, that we could be from the very poor family and we have to work hard year by year on stupid works. I was cleaning houses and promote some flyers on the streets and did a lot of works to earn some money to come to Africa. After that, when people they saw our ministry, they were willing to help us with the kids. But for the tickets, for the first years especially, we have to earn by ourselves. So I had a friend there. His name was Ken, and he was connected with military somehow. Sometimes he helped us in the villages to rescue some kids, and he was preaching in the church, and he was in a ministry with pastor. And he always told me like, "Natasha, I love you so much. You are my best friend. We are friends forever." You know, of course, I believed him, and he was my last hope. So we were waiting for Ken with our backpackages and was ready to run. And when he was opened the gate, Lisa he pushed him, and we was able to run. And we was rushing to the motorcycles guys, and we was screaming and begging them to help. I was in a motorcycle already and I grabbed this boy and I told him, "Just go to the airport strictly, please help us. These people, they kidnapped us." And this Ken, he came to me and he grabbed my hand like that and he told me, "My dear, you are guilty and you will go to the prison. But I'm so kind, you will go to the private jail, to my own jail." And you know, that scene was in a movie. when this girl, she was screaming like, help me, for God's sake, help me.
And the taxi driver said, okay, look, I can't drive fast. They're going to shoot my tyres out.
This man, he was grabbed her hand too. And for these victims whom you can't believe, I want to speak out. And Sonia, she saw that I was speaking with Ken still, and I was telling him like, Ken, look, I'm your friend. You forgot everything that we've done, like you was helping me and so on and so on. Can you imagine how stupid I was, how codependent I was? I still wanted to prove him that I'm innocent, I'm your friend, I love you, everything is okay. Just person he want to put me in a jail, and I still like show him that I'm so kind, I'm so innocent. I try to prove him. And Sonia, she just pushed him and told these people, let's just go to the airport, because it was our day of departure, and we was chasing by this pasta and by this can, and we were over speeding, and we was screaming, we was crying, and we came to the airport, and this pastor, he tried to pay to some policemen, but by the miracle we saw some guys, they were soldiers, and we started to scream to beg them to help us, to protect us. And these guys, they were from our country, and they protected us. And of course, this story couldn't stop us to help kids to come back to Africa. But the years passed, and I became more and more consumed with the feelings of hopelessness. That you live in one house with these people, you share food, you try to help them, you risk your life, you lose your health, but they betray you, they cheat on you, they lie to you, they rob you, and they do other crazy things with you. And since you are immature and you love people too much and you come to them too close and you open them your heart and you're codependent, that can break your ministry. So people sometimes they think that I'm exaggerating things and I create some things. I want to tell you one thing. There is different environments. For example, in Uganda, in country that I used to live, there is villages and there is a missionary base that it's very good and great that you live in a village and there's some secure place. And there is slums. There is Kampala, where you can suffer a lot if you will live alone there, and it's very different worlds, and we will never understand each other. And you know, it was some group of Slavic people. They live in Kampala, and they had this chat in some messenger. And at that time, the movie about our ministry was released.
Ваши имена все вместе, когда я произнесу раз, два, три, вы говорите ваши имена. Раз, два, три.
And that people, they saw this movie. In this movie, I was speaking about slums, about street kids, about this work, our trenches. And they started to discuss me, like, this woman, she is lying. How can she speak like that about our beautiful Uganda? And no, they will never come to my hood because it's too dangerous for white people to come to Chiseni, for example. I made a pause, and then I told to them, you can come to my house. I had the rehab house that time with some kids from the street. And I invited all of them to come to me and to see the reality of Kampala, and they kept silence. But one lady, she came and she recorded everything about this slum that I used to live and about our rehab center, and she showed it to others. I met some whites who never used public transport in Uganda, and I couldn't believe that because it's impossible for me, especially in the first years, not to use the public transportation. But we live in a different world. I live in Chicago now. Some people, they will now go to South Side because it's constantly shooting there. And you can't judge the city only by some area. Just we live in completely different environments. You will never understand me. I will never understand you. But we shouldn't judge each other. And I have a question to when I see all these mega churches, all these huge conferences, all these worship events, where these same crowds in the slums, and there is no. And I didn't see these crowds in the trenches to save the kids, to rescue kids from the child trafficking, for example. Where are the same crowds? Where are the same pastors, preachers, and churches where people shoot each other on the hood? And you will tell me it's not my calling. Yes, of course. It's all about the calling. It's not about your heart. Because you can go to these conferences, you can go to these mega churches and see all these beautiful songs and so on. But a few people will come, maybe, in these bushes, in these trenches, in this hood. And I don't think it's about the calling. I think it's about our Christianity, that it's easier for us to come to this church to see, to listen to the good sermon, than to take some kid or young man from the street and educate him and to care for him. Of course, it's more difficult to come to the slum and take one kid from the trench. I guarantee you will suffer, of course. I'm not impressed of the pastor's smart revelation of tears. This pastor who shared his great testimonies demanded the ransom from us, and he cried and he preached and he know Bible perfectly. Another plague that spoiling the kids in Africa, and when these missionaries, or I call them 2 weeks missionaries, they come to Africa and they started to spoil our kids and they give them sweets on the streets. And then when I passed by, this kid started to beg me for money or for sweets, or never give sweets to the kids on the streets. It's not about compassion. It's not about service. You should be wise and you should know how to help these kids. And ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want to have a good picture that you give some sweet to some kid, or you want to help him, really help him, I mean, you know? And if you want to help our kids, you should devote your time, you should devote your life and years, and you should risk your life sometimes. And it's very hard. It will never impress me. Then you will have some position, you will have some authority. I don't want to call myself missionary. Yes, I used to live in Uganda. I used to live in rehab center that we organized with my friend together. And yes, I had kids from the street, but I will never call myself missionary. Second one, you should know the local language. It's very important for children to trust you and to build this relationship with these children. To understand them better, you should know this language. And it's very important for me where your pastor lives. If he lives in a golden castle, for example, and he flies with a private jet, it's a very big question for me. You know, sometimes these pastors, they show us another reality. They invited us to the house, we call it guest house, and they show these white people that we're so poor and we are so humble, but it was not their real house. It was just for you, for the missionaries, to show you how poor they are. In the reality, they have huge houses, and in the end, we found these houses. Another thing that I didn't notice, this pastor, there was so afraid of his reputation. You can't imagine. He pushed me on the front rows in the church. It's not bad to sit on the front row, but when I was with some kids there, he was whispering in my ear, like, you will destroy my reputation. You can't do that. These people, they are nothing. What do you mean nothing? This kid, he's in a church too, like you. We all like sons and daughters of God. This pastor, he always told me, like, I destroy my reputation by working with some teenagers on the street. It's not good. And this pastor communicate with ordinary people. Of course, he will communicate with you because you're white. And some people from some churches, they told me, he was so kind to me. He was so nice and open. Of course, he did all these things to you because you're white. He wants something from you. But does he communicate with ordinary people who will never bring him money or something like that? And there was one moment in the BBC movie, they told like, and these people, they kneel down on their knees. And for example, in Uganda, it's normal for me. I personally, I kneel down before grandmothers to greet her, so it's not so big deal. And second thing, like sometimes we were sleeping on the floor, and for us it was like normal. Sometimes we were sleeping on the mattresses. It's not like a huge deal. So it's a huge question to me why people, they don't believe victims, and why I didn't believe children. Why people, they can't accept the reality of another country. They can't accept the reality that pastor, he can be cheater or scammer, and it's better for us, and it's safer for us to deny the reality and to live in our creative world, like everything's good, this is church, this is pastor, and this woman, she's exaggerating and she's too emotional. This kid, they're too young. So I told you my experience, my story, and it was only 1 year in Uganda, and ahead I still have like 6 years in Africa. You can imagine all these crazy things that happened with me, but this year was like that, and I realized that I should listen to these people who live there for many years. I should listen kids carefully. I should listen victims, and I should look not on these first rows, on this position of these pastors, of the preaching or tears or something like will impress me. No, I will look at another things, like I will look more deeply. I will build a relationship with kids. I will learn the local language. First of all, I will live in a slum exactly inside there, but I will be more wise. I will protect myself. I want to be healed from codependency, not to make these mistakes again and again, because I want to rescue kids from kids trafficking. I want to help kids from the streets, and still I have this desire to help these kids there. But for me, that time it was impossible because I was too naive, too codependent, and I love people too much.